What's up, guys? Today I'm bringing you a story that'll make you question everything you think you know about corporate loyalty and revenge. This is the story of Simon Crow, a 45-year-old marketing director who got played by his own company, only to orchestrate the most calculated corporate takedown I've ever researched. Trust me, you're going to want to stick around for this one. But before we dive in, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. We're all about exposing the dark side of corporate America, and this one's going to blow your mind. Picture this: Seattle, Washington. Rain-soaked streets, coffee shops on every corner, and towering glass buildings housing some of the biggest tech companies in the world. In one of those buildings, on the 23rd floor, sat Simon Crow. 45 years old, silver streaks just starting to show in his dark hair, wearing the same charcoal suit he'd worn to every important meeting for the past 3 years. Simon wasn't your typical corporate climber. He was methodical, patient, and had built something rare in the business world: genuine trust. For 9 years, Simon had been the marketing director at Nexus Digital Solutions, a mid-sized firm specializing in digital transformation for Fortune 500 companies. But here's the thing that made Simon different from every other marketing executive in Seattle. He didn't just manage campaigns. He built ecosystems. While his colleagues were obsessing over click-through rates and conversion metrics, Simon was playing a longer game. He'd cultivate relationships with CMOs, develop personal connections with decision-makers, and create marketing strategies that weren't just effective, they were irreplaceable. His client roster read like a who's who of American business. Margaret Chen, CMO of Pacific Northwest Airlines. They'd met at his daughter's college graduation, where Margaret's son was also graduating. David Rodriguez, from Cascade Manufacturing. They'd bonded over their shared love of vintage motorcycles at an industry conference 5 years ago. Jennifer Walsh at Emerald City Logistics. She'd been his study partner in an executive MBA program back in 2018. These weren't just business relationships. They were friendships that happened to generate $47 million in annual revenue for Nexus Digital Solutions. Simon personally managed 73% of the company's total client base, and his retention rate? 98.7% over 9 years. But here's where our story really begins, guys, because in corporate America, success can make you a target just as easily as failure can. 3 months before everything went to hell, Nexus Digital brought in a new VP of marketing. His name was Marcus Webb, 32 years old, fresh from a Silicon Valley startup that had flamed out spectacularly after burning through $50 million in venture capital. Marcus had all the buzzwords: synergize, pivot, disrupt, optimize. He wore expensive sneakers with his suits and carried around a notebook he claimed contained revolutionary marketing frameworks. The CEO, Patricia Morgan, was completely charmed. Simon should have seen the warning signs immediately. The first red flag came during Marcus's introductory presentation to the marketing team. He'd spent 2 hours talking about reinventing the client experience and implementing cutting-edge acquisition strategies. Not once, and I mean not once, did he mention client retention or relationship building. After the meeting, David Rodriguez texted Simon, "Your new boss seems like he's never actually worked with a real client before." Simon laughed it off. Big mistake. The second warning came 2 weeks later. Marcus scheduled individual meetings with every marketing team member, except Simon. When Simon asked about it, Marcus smiled that practiced Silicon Valley smile and said, "Oh, you're senior leadership. We'll have our strategic alignment session soon." That session never came. Instead, Marcus began implementing what he called the new Nexus marketing protocol: cold outreach campaigns, aggressive email sequences, automated social media engagement. Everything Simon had spent 9 years avoiding. But the real gut punch came during the quarterly client dinner. Simon had organized these events 4 times a year for the past 5 years. Intimate gatherings where clients could network with each other and with the Nexus team. No pitches, no sales presentations, just relationship building. This time, Marcus insisted on attending. And guys, what happened next was painful to watch. Marcus spent the entire evening pitching new services to Simon's clients. He interrupted conversations, dropped buzzwords nobody understood, and at one point actually pulled out his laptop to show David Rodriguez a PowerPoint presentation about multi-channel optimization strategies. In the parking lot afterward, Margaret Chen pulled Simon aside. "That guy is going to destroy everything you've built here," she said quietly. "I've seen his type before. They optimize the soul right out of successful relationships." Simon tried to reassure her, but deep down he knew she was right. The axe fell on a Tuesday morning in October. Simon was reviewing campaign performance reports when Marcus knocked on his office door. "Simon, got a minute? Patricia wants to see us both in her office." The walk down the hallway felt longer than usual. Simon had been with Nexus Digital for 9 years. He'd seen the company grow from 12 employees working out of a converted warehouse to a 200-person operation in downtown Seattle. He'd been employee number 4. Patricia's office was exactly what you'd expect from a tech CEO. Minimalist furniture, motivational quotes on the walls, and a view of Elliott Bay that probably cost more than most people's annual salary. "Simon, sit down," Patricia said, not making eye contact. "We're restructuring the marketing department." Here it comes, guys. The classic corporate betrayal speech. Marcus has presented some innovative approaches to client acquisition and retention. We're moving in a more data-driven direction. Simon glanced at Marcus, who was staring at his hands like he was suddenly fascinated by his manicure. "Your position is being eliminated," Patricia continued. "Effective immediately. We appreciate your contributions over the years, but we need people who can adapt to the modern marketing landscape." 9 years, $47 million in annual revenue, a 98.7% retention rate. And they were eliminating his position because he wasn't modern enough. Simon didn't argue, didn't plead his case, didn't mention that he'd personally brought in nearly 3/4 of their total revenue. He just nodded and said, "I understand. Best of luck with the new direction." Patricia looked almost disappointed, like she'd been expecting a fight, something she could use to justify her decision later. Instead, Simon stood up, shook both their hands, and walked out. But here's what Patricia and Marcus didn't know. What they couldn't have known because they'd never bothered to look beyond the spreadsheets. Every single one of Simon's major clients had his personal phone number. They'd been to his house for barbecues. They'd met his wife and kids. They'd shared stories about their own families, their challenges, their dreams. In Marcus's data-driven world, they were account numbers and revenue projections. To Simon, they were friends who happened to do business together. As he packed up his office, Simon's phone was already buzzing with text messages. Word travels fast in Seattle's tight-knit business community. "Margaret Chen. Just heard the news. What the hell is Patricia thinking?" David Rodriguez. "Called Nexus to discuss the Q4 campaign. They said you're gone? This is insane." Jennifer Walsh. "Are you okay? This makes no sense." By 6 p.m. that evening, Simon had received calls or messages from 31 of his 35 major clients. Not because Nexus had contacted them about the transition, they hadn't, but because the Seattle business community was small and people talk. Simon sat in his home office that night, looking out at the city lights reflecting off Puget Sound. His wife Karen brought him a cup of coffee and sat down across from his desk. "So what's the plan?" she asked. Simon smiled for the first time that day. Because for the first time since walking out of Patricia's office, he realized he wasn't angry. He was excited. I'm going to let them see what they actually lost, he said. The next morning, Simon woke up to 47 missed calls and 73 text messages. His phone had literally run out of storage space for notifications. But the message that caught his attention was from Elena Rodriguez, VP of Marketing at Quantum Strategies, Nexus Digital's biggest competitor. Coffee today? I think we should talk. Elena had been trying to recruit Simon for 3 years. Every time, he'd politely declined out of loyalty to Nexus. That loyalty was officially dead. They met at a small cafe in Belltown, far enough from both companies' offices to avoid any awkward encounters. Elena got straight to the point. Everyone in the industry is talking about what happened yesterday, she said. Patricia's lost her mind. Simon sipped his coffee. Just a business decision, I guess. A business decision? Elena laughed. Simon, you are their business. Do you know what my research team told me about your client list? 87% of your accounts have never worked with any other marketing firm, ever. They came to Nexus specifically because of you. That number hit Simon like a truck. He'd known his relationships were strong, but he'd never quantified their loyalty. Elena slid a folder across the table. Director of Client Strategy, your own division, full autonomy, salary that's 40% higher than what Nexus was paying you, plus equity and performance bonuses. The offer was generous, more than generous. There's just one thing, Simon said, my non-compete clause. Elena waved her hand dismissively. Already reviewed by our legal team, Washington State rarely enforces them, especially in wrongful termination cases. But to be safe, we're proposing a 90-day consulting arrangement first. Simon took the folder home to review, but he'd already made his decision. The next morning, he signed the consulting agreement. By then, the damage at Nexus was already becoming visible. Pacific Northwest Airlines had postponed their Q4 campaign launch, quote, pending internal review, end quote. Cascade Manufacturing had requested all project files and account documentation. Emerald City Logistics had simply stopped responding to emails from their newly assigned account manager. Marcus was panicking. He'd been making frantic calls to clients, offering discounts, extended service periods, anything to stop the bleeding. But here's the thing about relationships, guys. You can't discount your way into trust. That's when Simon's phone rang with a number he recognized but hadn't expected to see. Simon, it's Patricia. We need to talk. Patricia wanted to meet at a neutral location, a hotel bar downtown. When Simon arrived, he found her already there, looking like she hadn't slept in days. I made a mistake, she said without preamble. Simon ordered a bourbon and waited. 18 major clients have either paused projects or requested account transitions in the past week. Our Q4 revenue projections are completely destroyed. She slid a piece of paper across the table. It was a list of client names, with dollar amounts next to each one. The total at the bottom made Simon's eyebrows rise. $31.7 million in at-risk revenue. What do you want from me, Patricia? I want you to fix this. Come back, same position, 25% raise, and Marcus reports to you instead of the other way around. Simon almost laughed. You fired me 6 days ago because I wasn't modern enough for your data-driven approach. Now you want me to clean up the mess that approach created? The board is concerned about our client retention metrics. I bet they are. Patricia leaned forward.
Look, I'll be honest. Marcus oversold his capabilities. The board is considering replacing him.
With who?
With you. CMO position. Full C-suite privileges.
Now that was interesting. But Simon had already committed to Quantum Strategies. And more importantly, he'd learned something valuable about Patricia's leadership style. I appreciate the offer, Simon said, but I've accepted a position elsewhere. Patricia's face went pale.
With who?
Simon didn't answer directly. I hope you can salvage what's left of those client relationships. They're good people. They deserve better than this. As he walked away, Simon felt a strange sense of closure. Not satisfaction. He wasn't petty enough for that. But clarity. He finally understood his true value. And so would the market. His phone buzzed with a text from Elena. Board approved the full court press. You ready to build something amazing? Simon texted back. Let's do it. Simon's first day at Quantum Strategies felt like coming home to a place he'd never been before. The company had given him an entire floor to build his client strategy division, complete autonomy over hiring, and a budget that dwarfed anything he'd worked with at Nexus. But the real magic happened when he started reaching out to his former clients. He wasn't poaching. That wasn't his style. Instead, he sent personal notes to each of them, explaining his situation and thanking them for their friendship over the years. No business talk, no sales pitches, just genuine gratitude. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Margaret Chen called that same afternoon.
When can we schedule a meeting to discuss transitioning our account to Quantum?
David Rodriguez was even more direct. Just tell me where to sign. Nexus has been a disaster since you left. Jennifer Walsh actually drove to Quantum's offices unannounced. I've been waiting 9 days for someone at Nexus to return my calls about our campaign modifications. This is ridiculous. Within 2 weeks, Simon had signed 7 major accounts that had voluntarily terminated their contracts with Nexus. By the end of his first month, that number had grown to 12. But the real coup came from an unexpected source. Thomas Kim, CEO of Pinnacle Consulting Group, had never been a Nexus client. But he'd heard about Simon through the business community grapevine. I've been looking for a marketing partner for 3 years, Thomas explained during their first meeting. Every firm I've worked with treated us like a transaction. I want a partner who treats us like family. The Pinnacle account alone was worth $8.2 million annually. Elena stopped by Simon's office at the end of his second month with a bottle of champagne and a huge grin. The numbers are in, she announced. Your division has brought in $23.6 million in new business. In 2 months. The board is calling it the most successful product launch in company history. But Simon's favorite moment came during a client appreciation dinner he'd organized. The same type of intimate gathering he'd been hosting for years, just with different company branding. As he looked around the room, watching clients networking with each other, sharing stories, building their own relationships, he realized something profound. This was never about revenge against Nexus or proving Patricia wrong. It was about understanding that in a world obsessed with data and automation, human connection remained irreplaceable. The ultimate validation came 6 months later, when Elena walked into Simon's office with an expression he'd never seen before, a mixture of excitement and disbelief. You're not going to believe this, she said, closing the door behind her. She placed a formal document on his desk. At the top, in bold letters, Acquisition Proposal, Nexus Digital Solutions. Simon looked up, confused. Quantum is buying Nexus? The board wants to. Their client base has collapsed. They've lost 68% of their major accounts in the past 6 months. Their stock price is in free fall. Patricia's been fired. Marcus was let go 3 months ago, and they're desperately looking for a buyer. Elena sat down across from his desk. Here's the interesting part. The acquisition committee wants you to lead the integration process. Full authority to restructure their operations, retain the employees you want, and merge the client bases. Simon stared at the document. Nexus Digital Solutions, the company that had fired him for not being modern enough, was about to become his responsibility. There's one condition I'd want, Simon said finally. Name it. Every current Nexus employee gets a fair evaluation for positions in the combined company. No mass layoffs, no revenge firings. Everyone gets treated with dignity. Elena nodded. The board expected you'd say something like that. It's approved. The acquisition closed 3 months later. On his first day back in the Nexus building, now the Quantum Strategies West campus, Simon gathered all the remaining employees in the main conference room. Many of them looked terrified. They'd heard stories about hostile takeovers, about new management cleaning house. "I'm not here to settle scores," Simon began, looking at the familiar faces. "I'm here because I believe in second chances, and I believe in the power of doing business the right way." He could see relief spreading through the room. "Your jobs are secure if you want them. Your contributions are valued. All I ask is that you bring the same commitment to genuine client relationships that I hope to bring every day." After the meeting, Simon walked through the building one more time, past his old office, past the conference room where Patricia had fired him, past the marketing department where Marcus had tried to revolutionize everything. The space looked smaller somehow, less intimidating. His phone buzzed with a message from David Rodriguez. "Saw the news about the acquisition. Poetic justice, my friend." Simon looked out the window at the Seattle skyline, the same view he'd had for 9 years before everything changed. He texted back, "Not about justice, about building something that lasts." So what's the real lesson here, guys? Simon Crow's story isn't just about corporate revenge or professional vindication. It's about understanding what actually creates value in business. While Marcus Webb was optimizing conversion rates and implementing automated marketing funnels, Simon was having coffee with clients, remembering their kids' names and building relationships that couldn't be disrupted by spreadsheets or strategic pivots. When Nexus Digital fired Simon, they thought they were eliminating a position. What they actually did was sever the human connections that held their entire business model together. In today's hyper-digital world, companies are obsessed with scaling, automating, and optimizing everything. But Simon's story proves that some things can't be automated. Trust can't be scaled. Genuine relationships can't be optimized. The most successful professionals aren't the ones with the fanciest marketing frameworks or the most disruptive strategies. They're the ones who understand that business is ultimately about people serving people. Simon didn't win because he was vindictive or because he actively sabotaged his former employer. He won because he'd invested 9 years in building something that couldn't be replaced by a younger, cheaper, more modern alternative. The clients didn't follow Simon to Quantum Strategies because of better pricing or superior technology. They followed him because they trusted him, because he'd proven, over years of consistent behavior, that he valued their success as much as his own. That's a lesson every professional should take to heart. In a world where companies treat employees as resources and clients as revenue streams, the people who treat others as human beings will always have a competitive advantage. Simon Crow understood that the most powerful business strategy isn't disruption or optimization. It's being genuinely, consistently valuable to the people around you. And in the end, that's a strategy that never goes out of style. I'll see you in the next one.